want everybody to close your eyes. This is not nap time. Come on, close your eyes. And picture the day-to-day of someone who is responsible for managing the local search presence for a company that might be a pretty well-known brand with a couple hundred or maybe even a couple thousand locations around the country. Everybody got a mental image? Does it look something like this? Look at this guy. He's exhausted, he's frustrated, maybe he doesn't even know where to begin. In reality, a lot of times these people who are responsible for managing local for these bigger enterprise companies already have a long list of responsibilities, and local, unfortunately, falls somewhere near the bottom. But that's where we come in. As the agency, it's our job to help make these people as efficient as possible and help them make the most of the 1 or 2% of their day that they have to dedicate to local. And those of us who work on these big national accounts, we're a little different, right? We're kind of a different breed. We're not like most local SEOs, and we're not like most of the other people probably in this room. When we're working with these larger enterprise companies, our goal really isn't to seek the holy grail of perfect nap. Our goal, a lot of times, isn't even really to dominate one particular industry, and it's certainly not isolated to one area of the country. When we're working with these bigger brands, a lot of times our goal is to just help them show up where people expect them to. And you've already heard a lot of great presentations today about how to deliver on customers' expectations on those brands, and there are a lot of really cool, sexy ways to do that, right? You can do that through content marketing and make awesome resources and awesome assets that answer people's questions. You can build a strong brand and make your company a go-to synonymous with anything, any topic that you need. You can even prioritize user experience and make sure that anytime anyone interacts with that brand on any platform, it's going to be a seamless, perfect experience, right? A lot of fun things. I'm not going to talk about any of that today. Nope. I'm going to talk about listings. Yeah. So listings kind of get a bad rap, right? And I mean, I get it. Like, nobody grew up wanting to do this for a living. No one gave an impassioned career day speech about how fun it is to format address lines and CSVs. But the people who have made careers out of this are really passionate about it, and there's a great reason for that. When you think about our job, our goals as local SEOs, it's to help people find businesses and find businesses on the internet. And you can't find businesses online if you don't tell the internet where they are, and you do that through listings. So really, it's our job to turn these CSVs of bulk data into destinations for people. And okay, maybe a little philosophical for late afternoon, but bear with me here. It's important to keep this stuff in mind, because as you're working through this kind of stuff for several hundred or several thousands of listings, it can get to feel pretty tedious and pretty overwhelming. So as you work through this, I really encourage you to build a process that works for you and your clients. I'm not going to stand up here today and tell you how you should be doing something or the right way to do things. If you're working with something and you've got a process down, roll with it. But the important takeaway here is to have some kind of a process in place, because you need to be able to replicate it, and honestly, it'll keep you sane as you're working through this stuff. So, process number 1, internal data management. Yeah, this can be a major headache for people, and I know that. But really, really start at the source, and I really encourage you to work with your clients to get a process in place to manage this stuff and update it regularly. You need a regular centralized source of location data. It needs to be updated regularly, and it needs to be shared with people across the company and across the agency, anyone who needs it to do their jobs well. And I know that's a lot easier said than done, and there are a lot of ways that you can do this, but agency folks, work with your clients on this. In-house folks, please be the person that makes this happen. It's going to make life a lot easier for you down the road. So some companies have multiple sources of location data and multiple warehouses that store their location data. Maybe they've got one department, another department that work with 2 different lists. Really try to get these as consistent as possible, or otherwise just pick one to work with when you're building your local listings and when you're submitting your citations. Data discrepancies, internal data discrepancies, get a lot worse as you push them out through the ecosystem. We're all familiar with that Moz data map that they've published a few times. Imagine that times like 10,000. You can imagine then it gets pretty messy pretty quickly. If you're starting with bad data from the get-go, you're starting at a disadvantage. So really try to get this stuff squared away. On the flip side, some companies don't have a central list of location data. And I know that might sound crazy to a lot of you, but it happens, and it happens more frequently than you might think. So That's okay, but in this situation, it becomes your job to build one. And the easiest way to do that is to ask the people who are working at these locations regularly. Survey your store owners, survey your franchisees, get the information from them. I have a Google form built out actually at the bottom of the screen that you can make a copy of and distribute and send out email to your franchisee owners, your store managers, to get that information collected. When you send that email out to them, copy the email address that's listed here. It'll ping a tool called Follow Up then that'll automatically send out that same email with that Google form every 6 months. That way the list of location data, all of that store data, builds itself, updates itself. You can set it and forget it. Now, every once in a while, you'll have a chance to work with somebody who gets how important data consistency is, right? They've maybe followed the industry blogs, they've been to a local U event, they understand just how important NAP consistency is. But local SEO for 5 locations is a lot different than local SEO for 50 locations, for 500 locations, for 5,000 locations. There are different strategies and different opportunities that you have to take advantage of in each of these situations. So in this situation, it's really important to educate your clients or educate your coworkers on those differences and set realistic expectations as early as possible. Perfect NAP for a enterprise level local business is a unicorn. It doesn't exist. I hate to break it to you guys, but it's mythical. You can chase it all you want, you can hope for it, but you're never gonna be able to get to that perfect level. So just get that through your own head from the get-go and set that expectation as soon as possible, and you're gonna be set up for a better working relationship if you can kind of get everybody on the same page with that. Also, while you're having conversations and setting expectations, chat about budget early on too. It costs money to manage locations at this scale and to manage listings and data at this scale, so expect to spend. You can do a lot of this manually, sure, but any cost that you save upfront by not investing in tools and technology is going to be spent in time trying to do it manually down the road. So, your call. But once you have your data, and once you are starting to build your citations and submit your data, be really strategic about where you decide to submit your data. You don't need to be perfect, but you do need to be purposeful and be strategic about where you decide to submit your listings. You know, there are a lot of ways you can do this, and there are a lot of things that are going to impact how you decide to go about doing this. Your current level of optimization, your goals with your listings. Sometimes it makes more sense you're gonna get a better return to submit to 1 or 2 choice vertical directories than you are to submit to data aggregators. It's really about prioritizing your goals and what you want to get out of your listings. But however you decide to do it, I really, really encourage you to use technology to help you and use the tools that do exist to help you out. So I really like Bright Local's citation tracker. Basically, this does a gap analysis of your company versus your competitors and tells you where they have citations and where you don't. And if you see that a lot of your competitors have citations on one website that you don't have citations on, probably prioritize that and make it a point to get a listing up on there. Places Scout is awesome. They can do a very similar thing, but I like them a lot because they'll go out and find your existing listings and then pull the links into a dashboard that you can use to manage them. They also check a few vertical directories, especially for auto industry, restaurant industry, and travel industries. They check a few citation sites there. So if you work in any of those industries, definitely check these guys out. MozLocal, I promise they did not pay me to say this. MozLocal, I really believe, is going to get you the best coverage in the ecosystem for the price. They have a pretty intuitive platform that you can use to manage from that dashboard. And they also help you identify and squash duplicates, which can be a huge nightmare when you're working on an enterprise level. So almost for that reason alone, I would recommend going with them. Yext. I know a lot of people have mixed feelings about Yext, but when you are working with a company that is acquiring a lot of new locations or shutting down locations and you need to get that information updated quickly, or if you work in an industry where you have a lot of seasonal changes, like maybe holiday hours or anything like that, Yext is a great option because it pushes it out pretty quickly and it does get that data updated relatively quickly. And sometimes you need to mix and match. MozLocal and Yext actually go really well together. Their duplicate suppression and duplicate management systems work pretty well together, and they kind of fill in holes in the data coverage. So customize, build your packages as you see fit. But regardless of whatever tool you decide to use to manage this stuff, you're going to be spending a lot of time filling out those glorious, glamorous CSVs that we talked about earlier. And we all know this, as you're going through filling out these bulk data files, you're like, got my name, got my address, got my phone number, feeling pretty good about my categories. And then you scroll. And you see things like brands carried and latitude and longitude, geocoordinates, and you're like, ooh, I don't know what that is. So you run away, you turn around, you leave it blank, and you go back to what you know. Don't do that. Do yourselves a favor. Please do not leave this stuff blank. Keep in mind the 5 W's as you're filling these out. Number 1, who you are as a company, your brand identity, your NAP, your logos, photos would fall under here too. What you do, your categories, where you're located, geocoordinates, neighborhood information, any containment stores that will be helpful for users. Think like the user and stuff like this. Make it as easy as possible to find you. When you're open, store hours, and why someone should come to see you. Now, it blows my mind when I see blank business descriptions in listings, especially brand listings, because this is the only place in a bulk upload CSV where you have free reign to say anything you want. You usually have about 200, sometimes even more, 400 characters to say literally anything you want. So get creative with this. This is a free opportunity for a call to action, or if you want to track the ROI of your listings, throw a custom coupon code in here and see how many times people use it. So seriously, keep this stuff in mind. These are the easiest. Filling out all of the optional fields in bulk CSVs is the easiest way to optimize your listings at scale. So when you have your fully complete CSVs, ask yourself where people are looking for your clients' services online. I'll give you a hint, it's probably not everywhere. So back to what we were talking about before, you don't need to be perfect here, but as you get ready to submit these, ask yourself where people might be looking for your client services. Probably, definitely still Google for most industries, right? So for Google, start manual. Do a couple searches, see if you can find listings that even exist for your client's company. If you find a lot that are verified, kick it back to your client, or if you're in-house, search around internally for the account that manages this stuff. Don't try to recreate them if you can avoid that. Just try to find the account that already exists that manages these. If you find a lot of floating unclaimed listings, or if you don't see any listings at all, you can set up a GMB account, but use a domain, an email address that's on the domain of the actual site that you're working with to optimize. It's a huge trust signal for Google. It'll speed along your bulk verification process and make your life a lot easier. But also, if you find a lot of those unclaimed floating listings, don't worry too much about that. If you submit a bulk file to a verified GMB account, Google will actually take care of a lot of that dirty work and try to find any unclaimed listings that exist already for that, and they'll try to pull in as much information as possible into that managed account. Also, though, don't just rely on manual work to do this for you. Use tools, again. Google Plus Local Wizard from Bright Local is awesome. We've used a custom version of this in the past, and it has been a lifesaver in finding those verified and unverified listings. Basically what it does, you send them a list of your locations, and they'll run all the searches and then come back to you with a list of, if they found a verified or unverified listing that exists for that company, and the top 10 competitors, and then a list of where they have citations. The biggest downfall to this is that you will get one individual report for every single listing that you are trying to find information for. Obviously, that's not very scalable when you're working with a few hundred or a few thousand. So you can use a scraper to collect that information, export it to a CSV, and then manage it, manipulate it however you want. Now, I am not talented at scraping. I'm not going to stand up here and pretend that I am. But I know that you can use an automation browser like Outwit, or you could probably do this with like Ruby or Python. But if anybody has ideas on how to do this, I would love you to tweet me. I'd love to get more information about how to replicate this part of the process. So moving away from Google, Apple, probably customers searching on iOS devices. The most recent ComScore reports say that Apple has a 43% market share hold on the US smartphone market. That's pretty significantly below Android's 53%, but Apple iOS device users are 4 times more likely to spend than than Android users. So maybe a smaller part of the market, but definitely a more lucrative part of the market. So do not ignore these people. I made the mistake of ignoring Apple Maps a couple months ago, and we work with a gas station client. They own and operate a few thousand gas stations up and down the East Coast. And anybody with an iPhone, you know, when you unlock it and you swipe to the right, you get to your Searchlight screen. You will see 4 very large, bright buttons. And one of those buttons is a gas button. And guess what? We didn't have listings that let us show up on Apple Maps at that time. And we saw a 20% decline in traffic from iOS devices in the month since iOS 9 launched. Now, there were a lot of other things that were going on at the time that could have caused that decline, so it's tough to say, yes, this gas station button definitely caused this, but compared to Android's 8% decline, that definitely caught our attention. So do yourselves a favor, don't make that same mistake. And if you're working with more than 100 locations, it's really easy to submit to Apple Maps. All you have to do is email them, seriously. If you have more than 100 locations, just shoot them an email at this address with your location CSV, and they will take care of uploading it, and they'll do some verification checks, but essentially all you have to do is tell them that you exist. So pretty simple. Facebook. Maybe some people are looking for Facebook for your client services. They've made some pretty big strides in the local search space this year. They've got the whole suggesting restaurants near you, that whole home services thing. I think, what did I hear, like 700 million searches a month or something from the Facebook search bar. Somebody yesterday mentioned that. But Facebook for large brands can be really tough, right? You want to have one centralized brand message, but you also want people to be able to interact with their customers and actually, you know, have the social element of Facebook, and it's tough to manage that from the corporate end. Does anybody remember parent-child pages? I see a couple hands. Yeah, that seemingly like disappeared overnight. All of the help documentation from the website kind of disappeared. They seemingly don't exist anymore. They do. They're just rebranded as Facebook locations, and any multi-location business can set this up. You just need a Facebook account rep, and there are a couple steps that you have to take. I uploaded the most recent version of the Facebook locations help setup guidelines to this link that you can grab. Just download it. I know the biggest hang-up is that you do need a Facebook account rep to do this, so usually to get a Facebook account rep, you need to spend Facebook ads, but I have heard of situations where people have been able to get contact information for a Facebook rep and set these up for them, so it's worth a shot. Maybe people are looking on Yelp. Everybody's favorite company to hate. Would I say that with love? So Yelp, when you are managing bulk accounts, pay them. It's worth it, because when you're paying Yelp for bulk management, or when you're paying Yelp for a bulk account, you're really paying for the bulk management option. There is, maybe other than the API, which was mentioned earlier today, there is no easy way to manage Yelp pages in bulk. So really, when you're signing up for the Yelp ad option here, what you're really paying for is the ability to manage locations in bulk, and they also help you find any pre-created or unclaimed Yelp listings that exist and bring them all into one account. So it'll save you a lot of time. So when you're working with this many locations, and when you're working with tools that are kind of custom hacked together to help you make them work for this many locations, things are going to go bad sometimes, and things are going to go wrong, and it's not going to be your fault. Stuff breaks. Twice now, our GMB listings, thousands of them have gone missing from our accounts with absolutely no explanation. The first time was when Google Places transferred over to Google My Business, and that same gas station client, they've had a fun couple years, just all 4,000 of them were gone, and Google had no explanation for where they went, but they were able to, the engineers figured it out and they fixed it. Then, just like 2 or 3 weeks ago, all of our locations and all of our GMB accounts just disappeared from the dashboard. But they were still on maps, so it was okay. It wasn't that big of a deal, but it's tough to not have a heart attack when stuff like that happens, right? And the important thing, though, is to just remember that this isn't your fault. There's nothing you can do. Tools are going to break. So just best way to prepare for that is just to expect it. Sometimes, though, things are going to go wrong because you screw up. And usually you can avoid screwing up with stuff like this by not rushing. Once I accidentally created 400 duplicate Google Plus local pages for one of my clients because I was rushing through a bulk upload and didn't double check the store codes. And this was back before Google was really good at like managing duplicates from being published. And I published 400 duplicates and then dropped Wi-Fi on my plane and had to sit on a plane cross country and watch while they all created and populated the ecosystem. That was a lot of fun to clean up. Not. You can, just whenever stuff like that happens, come up with a plan of action to fix it as soon as possible. Communicate it to your client, own up to the mistake, and then just explain how you're going to fix it and how it's going to be avoided moving forward. But with stuff like this, it's a slow game, right? You can't just overnight expect to invest in local for an enterprise business and then automatically have visibility. It takes time, and a lot of that time, a lot of the success depends on how efficiently you and your client are able to work together. 3 months of work on 3 different projects can look really, really different. One time we were working with a client that got dead batteries, apparently. Oh no, thanks. They saw 175% lift in local pack visibility within 3 months of work for some of their head terms. The next client that we were working with saw a 16% lift in local pack visibility. Still good, still different, but not exactly the same kind of success. The next project that we worked with, we were halfway to getting a full list of their locations 3 months into the project. And it took 6 months of a lot of searching internally and a lot of wrangling together the right people in the right departments to get that full list of data. But the feedback that we got on that client or that project was that that was the most valuable project they'd ever worked with an agency on. So, know your role, understand, set expectations as soon as possible, and really just establish processes that work for you. Keep rolling with it and try to keep calm when things go wrong. Thanks.